everything right. Like you can go to certain school, or you can do, get good results in your exams and stuff like that. And then you go and you look at the statistic, and I think it's something like 48% of black graduates are still unemployed after a year. And they don't get the opportunities and stuff. And I heard you saying that you've opened it up for where you recruit from. And I think doing stuff like that is really important, because I think that a lot of people don't understand. Like my son, he was lucky, he was a rugby player, he went to a really good boarding school, he did great in his A-levels, he's at a great university and stuff. But when the time came to apply for university for him, I was saying to him, you've got to go for Oxford and Cambridge, you can get it, you've got like AAB, just go. And he was like, I'm not doing it, I'm just not going to apply for it. And I said, why? And he said, I don't think, from the stories that I hear from there, I don't think I could take the racism. Like, it would just be so much hell there. And I think it was quite frightening, because there was a young guy who got a scholarship there, and he ended up in some kind of altercation in the back of a police van, and sadly, he never came out alive. And so I think when you have this idea that you've got to just apply to just, get people from Oxford or Cambridge, and you have this preconceived idea that these are just the most clever people in the in the country, and that's not the case. You could be missing out on somebody who's just brilliant, who just didn't want any grief and just wanted to go to Brunel, so they could still be in a multicultural thing and feel comfortable in their learning. That is a really good point, because I think people have found that where they have brought in positive discrimination in places like the BBC, when they actually look at it properly, all the recruits, or sort of like the black people, the Asian people, none of them are management. Hardly any of them are decision makers. Hardly any of them are actually in place to implement some change. And when I was speaking to the guy who produced these comedy shows with all the blackface and stuff, I actually spoke to him about that. And I said, look, how many, was there no black person there to tell you? And he talked about doing a live, I won't say which shows he works on, he's a really nice guy, but he was talking about doing a live taping of one of these shows, and he said, but at the end of it, we were speaking to the audience, and then we spoke to this black guy, and this black guy said it was all right. I said, well, sometimes you have to, because you're put on the spot. If he was the only black guy there, and he turned around and said to you, that is not funny, people might have turned on him. So he probably had no choice but to sit there and go, yeah, that was great. And he was probably like, because when I go into schools and we do stop and search talks, and it's really interesting, we do them from about 12 to 16, 17, and we tell them their rights around stop and search, what's allowed, what's not allowed, what they should and shouldn't do, how to sort of get through it and stuff. And when you speak to the 11-year-olds and you say to them, do you think stop and search is something that should happen? They all go, yeah. Oh God, yeah, it's a great idea, it's brilliant. All of them, all across like the racial divide, every single race says yes. When you get to 15 and you say to them, do you think stop and search is a good thing? And they go, no, absolutely not. And I'm like, God, it's like anyone else clicking this. It's like, because by the time they get to 15, most of them have experienced it. And they've felt what stop and search is really. It's not, a lot of times it's accompanied by violence and name calling and all kinds of stuff. It's not what, people are, oh, if you're not doing anything wrong, you don't need to be worried. That's not the case at all. And then when I went into the prison service, I was sort of walking through, and I noticed that the convicted wing was very mixed, and then they've got the drug rehab wing, and they've got all this wing. And the remand wing, it's like 96% black. And so, of course, these are the ones who have the most privileges because they haven't technically done anything. They're just awaiting trial or whatever. And I was like, okay, so black people are just not getting bail. They're getting arrested. They're being put on remand. They have to stay there for months and months at a time. So what I would say to someone if they want to combat this stuff is before you get your back up and you get upset about it, I would say just walk around, look around. Obviously, you're going to have a different perspective from the way you grew up and things that you've heard. But if you just take an honest look, you take some time to yourself and you look around, you can't say that this society is equal and you can't say this society is just. And then you have to ask yourself, how do you feel living in a society like that? And I think there's an author called Toni Morrison, and she spoke about racism, and she was saying, which I thought was a really good point, she said, if you can only be tall when somebody is on their knees, then what's the point? If you can only be strong when somebody else is weak, what is the point? And I think all of us, if we're honest with ourselves, want to live in an equal society where we can compete for stuff. You know, you don't want to get something and just, oh, it was just given to me. Because that's what a lot of people think. It's like, oh, you know, you want to go and get that gig because you're black. I don't want to get it because I'm black. Because hopefully, no one's, you know, if I'm doing a comedy gig and the only thing I've got going for me is that I'm black, hopefully they won't laugh at just that. Do you know what I mean? You have to have something to back it up with. And yeah, that's what I would say to anybody that wants to make changes. Have a real good look and an honest look with yourself at what is actually happening in this world and ask yourself, is it fair and is it what I want?